Hey, Caesar. How you doing? I'm putting up a few more things. Video's okay, but some noise, so I can't figure out the sound. But make some noise. Okay. Can you hear it okay now? The sound all right? Hi, Dominic. Okay, great. Thanks. How you doing, Brian? How does it feel to be 39, Brian? You're getting old. Oh, good. Thanks, Dominic. Let me take care of a couple other things. I'll be right back, okay? Oh, man. I'm grumbling to myself here. Okay, we got a few more people be joining us. Oh, hi HRM, how you doing? In 10 years, it'll be my second time. Oh, good. Oh, okay, doke, guys. What do you feel like talking about? Watches. If there's what's going on with watch collection right now that you feel is that we better look into. Hi, Goldfinger. Fulan Mari announced a nice watch today. A manual wine round case watch with a Pazoo 7001 custom bridges. Oh, that sounds interesting. You know, the 7001 I think runs at 26 what is it, 21,600 semi oscillations per hour. It's a small movement, and it was made for a much smaller watch, but it's been used on a lot of watches, and it's not a bad movement, really. Hey, Weed, how you doing? Yeah, you're the perfect one for this discussion, Weed. Weed and watches. Oh man, hand finished custom bridges on the 7001, 2,500 euro. Yeah, I know. I imagine we're going to be seeing that in a very few days as the Grand Prix gets up and is going to be uh, having a number of things they're going to be showing of what they've done, including, of course, Lyrique. We'll have our watch up. Uh, one thing. Have any of you ever known anybody? Oh, hey, here we go. I keep hearing that the second-hand market is showing substantial signs of slowing down. I must be looking. I mustn't be looking in the right places. Yeah. Um. Yeah. What I found out. I think you're right, Brian. But I've been looking at other markets where it hasn't slowed down. I was looking at some FP Journes the other day, and they hadn't slowed down. If anything, they've gone up more. I don't know why. I have no idea why. I think the middle market though has been slowing down, which is to me is probably the best market. The problem with the high market, I mean the ones that are really high, somebody who not some company that calls them high, but rather there there just don't make that many of them, and so you know this I got a great buy on this one, and so and this was there aren't very many of them, but somebody needed the dough at some point in time, and sometimes you just run into that. That new Tonda on bezel sold for 15K, quite a lot. Yeah, Caesar, that was you're right. I don't want to tell you what I got mine for, and that was actually, that is such a beautiful watch, the one that sold on bezel, that price really wasn't out of out of sort of out of a stretch. I'll put it that way. I don't know what the new list price is on those, but that's an awfully nice watch. That was a real beauty. There's something weird happened with the FP Journe that they had on bezel. There was something around 70,000, 80,000, somewhere in some crazy price, and the and then all of a sudden they were advertising it for over 100,000. So I thought the auction had finished on that, but then it came back again. I don't know what they're doing with that watch. Yeah, can find incredible deals around 1,000 to 3,000, especially within manual wine vintage pieces. Yeah, I think there's a whole lot of good ones there. There's there's some that I found. In fact, I think I'm going to do a video on it Friday. I've been sort of gathering them up. I've been finding watches that have been overlooked forever, it seems, and I'm beginning to find them. And the way I sort of quote unquote discovered it, this one guy he sent me one, and he said, "What do you think of that?" And it was like $21,000. And at first, my first thing is that that seems like a bit high. But then I looked a little closer and found out what it was. Um, it was a perpetual calendar with retrograde, this, that, and the other thing, and then it had an AGH module for a whole lot of stuff in there. And apparently, I found out that Jean-Marc Viderec, it was one of the ones that he had done for Harry Winston. And so, I mean, it was like, I don't know what that was negotiated to. I don't know if they paid the full amount, but for a perpetual calendar, and a perpetual calendar of that period though had been developed, at least the general methods that were used by Viderec were most likely uh, by had been developed originally, but it was changed by Viderec. Was the perpetual calendar. Okay, Dominic, come on, we'll come on back. I know. Do you think Bezel can set reserve prices on their auctions if the seller requests it? I haven't heard. Bezel's very interesting. I don't know. They might. I don't see why. I mean, basically, somebody said, "I want to sell my watch. If you can have a reserve price on it, okay. If not, adios." But what Bezel does is really interesting. They don't have what's called a buyer premium. They just have the person who buys it gets it for the hammer price, which is very unusual. And they charge the seller not too much, really. It's a percent. I don't know what it is exactly, but it's not bad. So, there's some things. Bill's back. What's that? Any plans for highly complicated pieces under Lyrique, something like a deadbeat second repeater? Yeah, how about double retrogrades in addition to our regular hour and minute HRM? This is something. That's one thing we gotta talk about. Those of us involved in a Lyrique project, we always talk on Sunday, and so, but that would be a thing. I've been wondering. We just shelled out $50,000 for a brand new design, and I'm wondering to what extent how soon we can start talking about that. And again, I know for Europeans it's a great thing, but for sort of work addicted Americans, we're a little shy on this. They got this big vacation that starts right around now and not back until the middle of August. And so a lot of the work that needed to be done on our watches is going to be in hiatus for about a month. Okay, Caesar. Caesar added a gold case. You're going after Louis Vuitton Escalade. I'm going to have to look at that closer. From what I understand, that was done by Le Temps, and that'll be interesting to see what they have. I saw it sort of at a quick glance, and you're wondering whether to get it in gold or platinum for some reason, and I think I know why. Platinum is always more expensive, even though the price of gold at this point in time is higher than the price of platinum. And I think the reason that platinum watches are more expensive is because platinum's harder to work with. This one is not platinum; it's white gold. And to tell you the truth, I cannot tell the difference between a white gold, steel, and platinum. They all look the same to me. It's sort of silver colored. Strange they shut down the factories for summer break. Yeah, I have no idea how that works. But that's what everybody does. They take a break. And what do you think about the new AP Square retro watch? Oh, I haven't seen it, Caesar, but that does sound interesting. That sounds like a real interesting one. Sounds very, very interesting. I My focus right now has been I can't buy a watch forever. I'm almost I really have blown my watch budget for the next several years, I think. In fact, I'm going to have to sell some. I hate to do it, but that's watch collection. You only get to enjoy them for a short period. Some watches I would never sell, including this one, because it waited so long to get it. Right now, it's at the 11:30 stretch, and 11:30 stretches is when they're at the wide side of the oval, and both of the telescopic hands they go all the way out. And then when they're at quarter of three or quarter after three, or some of the quarter times, then they squish them both together. It's a lot of fun just to watch it. And then it's got a hebdomadary movement, and so I wind it up. I thought, well, I'll put it on today. And I thought, well, I'll have to wind it up. I looked at it, it was already wound. I mean, it has a power reserve indicator that indicated that. What do you think about the new AP square? Okay. Say it got too excited about moving to the Middle East and now I need to sell my house. Oh man, yeah. I got I got smacked. My car got messed up by this distracted driver. That's the only thing I think I could say legitimately is somebody who, and then all of a sudden they just turned right into me. Fortunately, neither one of us were going fast enough, so neither one of us were injured, and even the airbags didn't deploy. Apparently, that's a big deal with the insurance company. So I took care of that, got another car, and trying to get back to normal. And then I found out that cars cost almost as much as watches. Can you believe that? They're really expensive. Hope to purchase a Swatch ETN geometry someday. Its dial is just a piece of art. The thing about Schwartz Etienne, I like that brand. They're the ones. They have this really interesting. They have I guess what you'd call it a plate, a base plate. The base plate has two round indentations in it, and you can either put in a barrel and a micro rotor or double barrels, and the double barrels are in parallel. So that watch, I was always very impressed with how they worked that out. I'm really not big into micro rotors, even though I just got a watch with. I didn't have any watches with micro rotors, and then I ended up with two of them, both of which were watches I probably would never want to part with. My new that new thing with the two hemisphere moons, the Parmigiani 1950 loon. That's got one of those little barrels. Something I do have in here somewhere. Here it is. This is a Vaucheur, if you can see it or not. Let me see. It's got a little micro rotor. This particular movement, I got from Benjamin Chi. He was making some watches with this movement in it, and I thought, well, I'll get one of the movements and I'll make a watch. Still waiting to get a watch to make. I haven't made one yet, but boy, I tell you, this movement is really a very, very nice one. It's really funny. The movement comes with hands and everything, and even a little window if you happen to have a date, if you want to have a date on yours. Luckily, it's only the car that was damaged. Oh yeah, I mean, I see all of these advertisements on TV. If you've been in an accident, get us, and we'll sue everybody for you. And I thought, oh man, it doesn't matter who's at fault. It was, like I said, this is not someone that I don't know. The next thing I'm gonna hear is get one of those nasty letters in the mail and, oh, we're gonna sue you. And the person who you ran into, they ran into me, but that's another story. There's God, I tell you, I don't think either one of us wanted that. I got a feeling that this woman was ready to forget the whole thing and drive away if I was willing to do the same thing. But I thought, no, we better call the cops and get a police report and God knows what else, because the insurance company is going to want it. And that's another story, though. Let's talk about watches. Watches are something that'll never let us down. We don't have a wreck with it. half my watch is worth more than my car. Yeah, yeah, Brian. It's sometimes you just like, heck with it. And so we went through all of the motions and everything. It's what can you say? I think that there's sort of my theology centers around a cosmic joker, and every now and then all of us get poked. Let's poke this one. Ha ha ha! I got poked. How you doing, Eco? Okay, what else is going on? Um, you know, it seems that new movements are between the are unique movements or between the very, very expensive and not existing, basically. I was thinking about that, and someone mentioned early on, I said, oh, they put a Pazoo 7001 in there. Well, 7001, it's now an ETA 7001, but that goes way back, sort of in a pre-quartz crisis movement. And it's a good movement, I guess, for 1950s and 60s and so forth. And I don't know, maybe that's the way to go. On the other hand, you see these guys say, we just spent, $10 million to develop a new movement. I feel their pain. I really do. And so this is, where are we going to get the new movements from? Or either that or like these new young guys who are making their own movements and their own watches. Those things, they start around $30,000-$40,000. And, I don't know. Hey, James, how you doing? Anyone else think the new red dial craze is horrible? Wait a minute. None. I don't. I, for one, I approve. uh, I, having a watch with a red dial if you want. The Mad Red that H. Moser has, I really like. It's just sort of cool. But I don't think I'd want more than one watch in my collection as red. In fact, my favorite color is sort of a cream color or white, namely because to me, that's the easiest to read the time with it. Open source movement development is an interesting concept. Yeah, HRM, tell me now that I used to write a lot of stuff with open source programming languages like PHP and some of the other ones that were open source. And now open source movement development, that I'm not too sure about. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe you could talk a little about that. Because if it's what I think it is, it's sort of like, once a movement is developed, anybody can use it. Is that because I know with LaRique, we pay all of this to have something developed, but then and it's basically Aganor's policy. We develop it for you. It's yours. Okay, James. I didn't mean this is a Fabre Luba. Not only does it have a red dial, it's got a red strap. All the red that anybody could possibly ask for. This looks like, I keep vampires away as well as blinding poor James. Hey, Dimitri, how you doing? What do you think that Hang Zhao movement will improve with time and concept? I've been saying that for years, Dimitri. I got a feeling there's going to be more and more stuff coming out of China that is going to be really, really going to be excellent stuff. It was sort of like, when you look at Seiko, they started, then they ended up with Grand Seiko, and they started having all these incredible movements. And then the spring drive, they developed that, which is something I don't particularly care for because of the quartz oscillator. But there's some really wild watchmaking going on. So I think that may be something to keep an eye on. I know that my own Chinese made movements. This is based on a 6498 ETA Unitas. It works great, and the best part about it is I can regulate it to just perfection. So I think that the Swiss it's rough. That book I had mentioned that Dominic had given me, Time Disturbed. That book is about the need for keeping your eye on the ball as far as what's going on in watch production. I find the thing with, like, for example, it's not going to be that many years before either the patent runs out or something else happens, where there'll be other kinds of development of silicon hairsprings. But I don't know if that's sort of the right answer when you got something like the Apple Watch. I mean, the Apple Watch has got better timing, more silicon. And it's because that sort of changes a certain concept in traditional watchmaking by adding silicon. Not that I'd ever complain about it or anything. There's one company they developed a movement with a huge group, and is now available for download. You can 3D print it with power laser printers. Wow. Yeah, H. Moser is the king of Fume. O'Leary style, huh? Or with CNC. Wow. James, the Hangzhou micro rotor is a fantastic movement. I'm not gonna argue with anybody about the quality of Chinese movements. Some of them are better than others, but that's true with Swiss movements as well. I don't know. There's hey Apar, how you doing? Sad, how you going? When something bothers the sort of the situation, I'll put it that way. Here you've got sort of a nice thing going on with the Swiss, and what they did as far as the Apple Watch is concerned, they ignored it, and a billion watches later, Apple is still going very strong. I think also the Android based systems as well. So you have this thing that is sort of like, it's almost like a parallel universe. You have a timekeeping device. I've got one on my phone. I got one on my computer, and I got one on my watch that's totally traditional. So I think there's more to it. I mean, let's see, in traditional watch collection, I don't see what the improvements I think would be to keep all of the sort of the Rube Goldberg setup going down from the barrel through the gear train down to the escapement to the to the pallet fork and then binging. I mean, I tell you that could easily be a Rube Goldberg cartoon without changing very much. And so then so sort of the game becomes, what are you improving at? Like you have something like the detent regulator, but it had some other kinds of problems. You've got the thing with the George Daniels coaxial escapement, but they're still most watchers are still using a Swiss, what's called the Swiss back and forth. I forget what it's called, but anyway, the Swiss, not Swiss escapement, but the Swiss, forgot, Swiss fork, something like that. Anyway. Qingyang is attempting to do proper high horology, stunning hand-finished in-house manual wine. You know something, HRM, one of the interesting things about that is that Seiko tried that. When they decided they were going to go from the low end and they're going to make a jump up. And the first jump they made was called, I think it was either the 4L or 7L, one of those two. And that ended up eventually as a Soprod A10. Is a great movement. And but somehow it was a little more expensive, I think, than the ETA one. That it replaced the ETA only in its exact size. They would be able to go into where they had those. Oh. What is wealth? I don't know. What is wealth? Whatever floats your boat. That's a good question, though. I mean, if we talk about, there's financial wealth, there's sort of relationship wealth, there's the wealth of your children, there's all kinds of wealth, and so it's a very hard thing to define. But whatever you accumulate, not in numbers but in quality, I think that would be my definition. It's sort of the collection of quality as well. How you doing, Mark? Velvia, man, how you guys doing? Anchor? Is that what it's called? It's called a Swiss anchor? Or is it a Swiss? Maybe it's a Swiss escapement is what it is. Hi, Dimitri. What's up again? I always feel that mechanical watches are not timekeeping devices. I have a phone for that. Yeah, they are jewelry, one of very few that men can get away with and just happen to tell time. That's part of it for me. But the jewelry part isn't as important as sort of wearing horology. It's not. I mean, it's sort of like a code. And if you know the code, in other words, if you know what's inside of it, it's sort of like, to me, seeing a good program. You see some program that you have on either your app or somewhere on your computer does really great things. It works well, but then you happen to know that underneath it, it's really just beautiful programming going on. That's the way I look at watches. They sort of have beautiful program underneath, or they don't. Hey, Eric, how you doing? And there goes Eric's message, whatever it was. Hey, Mark, when I need to know time, I look at my watch, not my phone. You tell him, Mark. Well, you got an FP Journe to look at. That's whatever I wear my FP Journe. That's what I look at, too. Just seen the last release from Furlan called Disco Volante with a Peizu 7001. We were just talking about that initially, Apar. Yeah, yeah. That I'm gonna have to look at it again. It sounds interesting. Sounds like a good. It sounds like and like you say, it's a good buy. I, you know, there's when people talk about Philippe Dufour, to me, way too much what they talk about is the finishing. Okay, but what is important about Dufour to me is the whole concept of using simplicity in the movement. Because remember, we're dealing with that sort of the same movement that Abraham Breguet has. So yeah, okay, so we polish it up. You can take a junk car and give it a paint job and fix it up and still a junk car. However, the emphasis on the if underneath that is you got something really beautiful. Now, to me, you can have a junky looking car with something really special underneath it, which is more fun because nobody's expecting that. Watches for me are a healthy mix between design, engineering, and craftsmanship. Boy, Eric, that's a perfect way of putting it. I really like that. Hi, Allie. How you doing? Funny thing is when someone sees you glance at your watch and asks you the time, but you were just yeah, you were just staring at the party dress, the prettiness of it. Yeah. I do that. I look at look at those hands. Look at the hands are doing now. They're sort of like they're double almost 12 o'clock, and so they'll be doubles right. It's almost yeah, it's almost 12. So they'll both be pointing right at the 12. I like 12:30 where they're stretched out, or 11:30 where they're sort of like, yeah. Hey Ed, how you doing? It's walking time. Okay, say hi to Fido for us, okay? That's called a sleeper in street racing. That's a good name for it. Very good name. Yeah, I agree, Ed. Yeah, I the quality of architecture and movement. This is one of the things I think that I would really like to see, and it may have been done. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with the Naked Watchmaker, but basically that's Speak Marin. Peter, I think it's Peter. I think he dropped the Marin part. Now it's just Peter Speak. His stuff, he takes apart a watch and lays it out. I would really like to see one of his deconstructions of a simplicity. What is there that you have these fine parts. This is one of the things I like about Aguinar is that you have things like a gears, the Agonese gears with the springs in the teeth, so that you have, those you don't get a lot of gears in it. We have one in ours, but still, I got two in my Dandy. Quality of movement arc, yeah, it isn't discussed enough. But so if you take something like the simplicity, the Dufour simplicity, you look at that. So you got the simplicity. What makes that such a good movement? It's not the finishing, I don't think. I'm pretty sure it's not. So I was going to say, well, maybe they go in there with a fine file on the teeth of the gears. I don't know. But I don't think so. I think obviously the gearing has got to be done just so and so forth. Maybe they do. Maybe they go and they file every tooth to make sure it's just right. It could be. What makes Ed quality of movement architecture? I think there's two kinds of quality. There's sort of the quality that goes into a plain vanilla movement, let's say a time only movement. And then there's the quality that goes into constant forces within that movement. And then there's a quality that goes into complications. So we have a lot of, to me, that's it's a whole lot of interesting stuff that we can look at. Oh, good. Whole milk, there is one. Oh, good. I'll take a look at it. Yeah, his stuff is, that is, but figuring out, here I got my Chinese 6498 that's keeping fantastically good time because I was able to regulate it. But I don't think that was probably done to the same quality or the everything else that Dufour uses. But maybe it was, for all I know. Like I said, it keeps great time. How do we know these things? We had to. I agree with Ed. We had to look at that more. The Naked Watchmaker has some incredible articles. Yeah, his Quorum Golden Bridge Automatic article is worth reading. Yeah, a whole lot of his stuff is. The thing about the Golden Bridge was that he's got everything. Oh boy. I just got a notice from our designer. I'll take a look at that in a bit. Report to our group. Um, how is it that the a fine movement, you have two things, two movements. Let's just take two exactly the same movements. Okay, we'll take and this is now I got it set. It'll have perfect time until it runs out. This is my cheap Chinese knockoff of a 6498 Siegel. Um, how can we tell that the Chinese Siegel that I have probably has all the same parts as the original Unita 6498? Okay, so you got them; they're the same things. How do we measure? How do we know about the quality of the two? I think the quality that there were some bumps, always some bumps in the watch development, but how do we do that? How do we say, yeah, this is done right? In programming, you can look at a program and you can say, wow, look at this guy did. He did X, Y, and Z that cut down on the amount of code and improved on the let's say fixing it up, or it's easy to get in there and make changes so that you don't have to start all over again, like an object-oriented programming. How do we do the same thing? And I mean, we can measure finishing. We can say, well, that's finished, and here's the things that we look at. What would we look at in a really good watch? That's what I want to know. And a good watch movement. Part of it is layout. You always have the train of gears, but how they are laid out, finger bridges, etc. Good point, Ed. I mean, you look at the something like the Georg, the one that Marco Lang built. You look at that. To me, it's simplicity and beauty are almost, they're hard not to. One is beauty and the other is simplicity, but they're sort of like having two mirrors. They reflect each other. Some people talk down on Groenfeld for outsourcing their gear train design to Andreas Streller. He always like, oh, we're going to outsource it to a genius. Like, oh, okay. That's you're right though. That's a good point. There's there's some people that say, well, they got a Vaucher movement rather than an in-house movement, or yeah, that probably a good thing. Or some other ones like, oh, they didn't do their movement themselves. They had Agenor do it, or they had the Circle de Horologies do it, or they had some other, yeah, in-house simply means that you somehow got a a watch movement together that you had some watchmakers who could do it. But you know what kind of quality is it? It's a funny kind of thing, and I think going back to Edgeborg, we really need to talk about movements more to figure out about these things. Yeah, Simon Brett, finger bridges. I don't talk down to Gronfeld for outsourcing the gears. I think, let's just look at it this way. You've got a company and they do gears. That's all they do. They do gears. Um, the, I, and they're good at it. And they have all the equipment, they have the expertise and so forth. Why wouldn't you so-called outsource it to them? Now, I know that some, like Romain Gauthier, he insists on doing every little part himself, and that's fine. In fact, he has a whole atelier that they do nothing but make the parts, and they use it, and apparently to some extent, so does Chanel, who owns part of them, and maybe some others as well. I tell you, ever since Peter Speak left Speak Marin watches, what they've been doing is really very interesting. They've been using for new movements, they have the Circle de Horologies do it. And one of the things that the Circle de Horologies will do, they'll come to your atelier, your factory, and work with you there rather than you're having to go over there. And so the new owners of Speak Marin said, "Well, we call that in-house." And I thought, "Oh, come on, guys! Give me a break. You don't. Why not just say here are these great watchmakers who are doing it?" I like that a lot better. Yeah, we've got to do more of that. That's going to be important. Well, look, guys, I've been going on, I think, beyond rolling pin times. I'm going to have to wrap it up. Let me see what you got here. Some last ones, HRM. The new the new in-house Yamaha micro rotor has a strange setup, 28,800 semi-oscillations per hour with extremely small balance wheel, smaller than some 36,000. Yeah, HRM, that's sort of my little thing with micro rotors. Micro rotors take up room, so you can't have as big as a balance wheel. But I somehow my brain didn't process it. But everything with a double barrel, there are a lot of things with double barrels that have pretty good size uh, balance wheels. So it's my own, sort of not paying close enough attention. But that's a good point. Stellar's Sema is stunning. I bet it is. Yeah, his Stellar stuff is great. Well, look, guys, I gotta go. So I thank you all for taking time to have this wholly unplanned, irresponsible talk about watches. Great to have you here. Take care.